All right, joining us now to discuss more on the development or the developing story, so to speak, in Rivers State. We have with us in the studio lawyer and social development advocate Olatubosun Oshifowora. We'll also be bringing in during the course of this program a senior advocate of Nigeria, Kunle Adegoke, to also lend his voice to the matter at hand. All right. We understand that Mr. Adegoke is live for us now. Hello, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Can you hear me? Good morning. Okay, let's begin with Mr. Oshifowora here in the studio. So a lot has happened, and you're welcome, by the way. Let me not get ahead of myself. A lot has happened and seems to be happening. Like Ibrahim has been saying, just grab your popcorn, sit and, continue. But it is concerning, isn't it? I don't know the one that most beats your imagination, but what are your thoughts, really, as to what is unfolding in Rivers? Let
me start from what Ibrahim said. I think you need more than popcorn. Yeah, you might need solid food so that you can watch the unfolding drama. It's quite unfortunate, and it's what has played out. And this is not the first time. We've seen it in different places. We've seen our politics is replete with, godfathers installing godsons, and at the end of the day, the godson suddenly, trying to fight for some phantom liberation, and I spoke with someone, in fact, the Speaker of Assembly of Southwestern State here, and he said, if you know how much goes into actually putting someone forward, maybe as your stooge or as your godson, and putting him in an election, particularly an unpopular person, he said it takes sweat, blood, and a lot of things. Now, so he was trying to justify the fact that if you see the godfather breathing down the neck of the godson, it's about protection of his interests. It's about protection of certain interests that he also represents. But at the same time, there should be rules of engagement. People bring people, people sponsor people. Politics is about interests. You have if you look at America, the gun laws people, they have people who sponsor them too, and they protect their interests. So that is not a new thing in politics. But the extent to which you go, and then who suffers or who bears the brunt, is actually the issue at hand here. Because if you look at what has happened in Rivers, literally, Wike brought Fubara. That is a no-brainer. Everybody knew it. In fact, during the campaign, Fubara was not obvious in the campaign, and Wike was doing everything, and he tried his best to make sure that he comes in. But when he comes in, one of the things people forget is the fact that this is a man in his own stride. No matter, even the fact that you brought him does not mean that he will kowtow in everything that you put forward. That is always so. You have the godfather trying to protect his interests, and then you now have the godson trying to stand as a man. After all, he's a man. And he will, then also, what he's doing, the position he occupies is governed by law. So there's an extent to which he will protect your interests. If the interest of the godfather clashes with the interest of the state should prevail. And the state will prevail. That is basically what is playing out here. And unfortunately for Fubara, Wike is so much entrenched in the system. You saw, I think sometime back when we were talking, a few weeks or months back, when we were talking about, how commissioners starting work almost immediately, we pointed it out here that Rivers State was like the first. In less than 2 weeks, when the governor came in, commissioners have been cleared, they've started work and all that. But now we're seeing it play out that the commissioners who actually were from a certain quarters. Yeah. So it's a carryover, it's a continuation of, Wike's administration. That's why you see the mass, withdrawal and everything. Right. Now, so this case has different dimensions. There's a legal angle, there's the moral angle, and there's the social angle. If you look at the legal part of this, now, can somebody bring someone in? Politics is about interest. If they have followed the law, then fine, you can bring in whoever. Once he gets the majority vote, he becomes the governor. Now, but what the governor has done, one of the biggest debate now is the issue of the appropriation bill. which he brought the bill before the assembly, and that's the fastest, is a record-breaking, passage of and
celebration of the bill didn't make the news, if at all it held.
If you look at the Constitution is clear. Section 100 of 1999 Constitution as amended, it said the House of Assembly shall conduct its affairs based on bills, and bills shall move to law. The budget is a bill. They brought it, and then what we used to know is that committees will sit on the bill and then go ahead with it. Now we have a question of numbers playing out here. We have the court order also, the interim order that was granted by the court, recognizing the speaker that is recognized by Fubara. So, and then if you look at section 102 of the Constitution, 1999 Constitution, it says that where certain persons are absent in the House, it's there, the Constitution,
it still does
that the House can conduct its affairs, regardless of their presence or absence. Now, so the issue of absence and the legitimacy of their absence, both parties have their own angles to it. This one can say that the court recognized us, so we can conduct our affairs. Based on the provisions of the Constitution, we can sit. And then the people that are absent, they can justify it based on, we've had Court of Appeal decision also in Abegude, that everybody is literally quoting it. I told a friend of mine that don't go to court based on this small law that you have read. So that's basic. I mean, in Abegude versus Ondo House of Assembly, you saw what the Court of Appeal said there, that if you jump ship, the position of the law is that a legislator is brought on by the party. Now, so if you jump ship, you left your party and moved on to another party, except you can say there's division, except you can say there's fragmentation, not just division, fragmentation, and the court expanded it in Article versus AG Federation.
Right, Mr. Oshifora, we'll have more time to expatiate on all of this, and I see River State is an interesting, issue, interesting issues coming out of River State. Let's go to our guest on Zoom, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kunle Adigoke, who is joining us. Let me quickly establish connectivity with you. Can you hear me first and foremost?
Yes, I can hear you very well. It was after I confirmed that I can hear you that the line went off.
That's right. Fantastic to have you. So I'm curious to see you weighing on, the issue which is also raised by Mr. Oshifora, in the studio, as regards the bill of the budget of appropriation bill rather of 800 billion naira being presented by the governor to the 4 members of the House of Assembly, State House of Assembly. How do you see it? Because this seems to be the fastest bill ever, appropriation bill ever, being passed into law in the history of Nigeria, as far as I know. Within 24 hours, does it amount to illegality, as a lot of people have actually talked about it?
Well, the position of the law is that the affairs of the House of Assembly or of the legislature, when it comes to its internal activities, may not be subjects of litigation in court. However, the fact that the House of Assembly, made up of 4 or 5 members, was able to pass the appropriation bill within so short a time might not be a basis to actually invalidate it. The question would be, is there any infringement of the provision of the Constitution in the process of passing the bill into law? Whereas we all will agree that a number of the House of Assembly members, being now they are the majority, if the 27 members are regarded as having vacated their seats, the implication is that right now the House of Assembly in River State is made up of 4 or 5 lawmakers. And to that extent, the business of the House will have to continue. There are certain situations where the House may have to adjourn until probably there is a quorum to be formed. And the Constitution requires that it is where a member raises the issue that the minimum quorum cannot be formed, that the Speaker would then have to adjourn the House. But in this situation now, we found the House sitting without anybody raising the issue of the minimum quorum. The implication is that the House deems itself to be competent to continue with the number, more so that the majority of 27, what would have been the otherwise majority of 27, can be regarded as having vacated their seats. Yes, there are certain situations that it may occur. That, let us say, for instance, may God forbid, that there is an accident involving members of a House of Assembly, and where probably the majority eventually died. The deceased members of the House can still not be regarded as occupying their seats, insofar as they are not available to occupy the seats physically and symbolically. To that extent, it will be required for the minimum number, the few members left, to continue the business of the House. So in this circumstance, one may not be able to fault the business of the House as conducted by the 4 lawmakers in passing the appropriation bill. It is another issue if there is an infringement of the provision of the Constitution that ought to be complied with before the legislative process could be said to have been validly carried out. In the absence of such, I think the passage of the bill into law will still stand the test of judicial scrutiny.
All right, still with you, Leonard Silk. Before we come back to Olutubosun Oshifowora here in the studio, Leonard Silk. So, the issue of the vacancy of the seats of, is it the 25 or the 27? All right, before we continue this interview, let's quickly take a break, and then we will resume our discussions. Please stay with us. We thank you very much for joining us again on TVC Breakfast, and we are diving deeper, unraveling the crisis in Rivers State involving the governor and members of the House of Assembly, of course, in the wake of key resignations by some members of his cabinet, at least 6 at the last count, involving or including commissioners for finance, justice, and the likes. Well, speaking with us, in the studio, first is Olutubosun Oshifowora, a legal practitioner and a social development advocate, and joining us from Ikeja, Lagos, is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Kunle Adegoke, and I thank you both. We thank you both for joining us and staying on with us. Leonard Silk, I was asking your position on the status of the 25 or 27 members of the House of Assembly who have gone on to still have their own sitting in spite of a court order, legitimizing, so to speak, the speakership of Ehie. Tell us where you stand, because they have said that they will be writing to INEC to declare their seats vacant. So what's even the status of these 25 members or so? Are we saying that and you've said something like that earlier, are you saying that so the 5 or the 4 members who are recognized by the court should just carry on their business as usual, legally? Help us understand the status of these 25.
I'll pick it from where I couldn't hear you any further, and that is to the effect that you'd like to know my position with respect to the status of the members who have defected from PDP to another political party, and the position of the law as regards the 4 members who are sitting as members of the House of Assembly, carrying on the legitimate business of the House. I don't think I can put it better than what my learned friend, Mr. Oshifowora, has said with respect to the position of the law. If it is the law, it is in the books. If it is not in the books, it is not part of the law. That is the aphorism that is well known to an average lawyer. And to this extent, it is quite clear that there is precedent for this situation. It is not novel. It is not something that has never occurred before. It is not a position that the court has not pronounced upon. Right from the days of FEDECO and GONI, Federal Electoral Commission, and GONI in about 1983, the issue cropped up whether a member of the House of Assembly or National Assembly who defected to another political party can still be said to be lawfully retaining the seat of the constituency on the platform of which party he was actually elected. And the Supreme Court was quite categorical about it, that once a member of the National Assembly or House of Assembly, that is simply put, a legislator, defects from his political party on which platform he was elected into the House to another political party, then he shall be regarded as having vacated his seat. And this position was reiterated by the Supreme Court again in Abegunde and Ondo State House of Assembly. And recently, I don't think it's got
carry on.
And recently, I can still refer to the case of Abubakar, and I mean the AG Federation and the Atiku Abubakar cited by my learned friend. The position has been consistent that once you defect from your political party to another, then you are regarded as having vacated your seat. You cannot continue occupying that seat because the seat was, you were elected on the platform of that party, and the victory at that election belongs to that political party. If you look at the decision of the Supreme Court in INEC, Amechi and INEC, the court was quite categorical that it is political parties that contest elections in Nigeria. So when you win on the platform of a party, you cannot defect while you are still sitting in the House of Assembly or in the National Assembly. No matter the number, if it remains only one legislator, only one member of the House of Assembly or National Assembly, all the other members who have defected shall be regarded as having vacated their seats. If the Supreme Court has pronounced in 3 cases that we have mentioned, and there are so many Court of Appeal decisions, Ofoburuku and the DPP, is there, and I think Kwara State House of Assembly and is one. Kaduna State House of Assembly and is one. These are cases where the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal have pronounced categorically that a member of the House of Assembly cannot continue occupying the seats if he abandons the political party. So the essence is for the political scene to be cleaned of political prostitution, to deter politicians, maybe for pecuniary gains or some other reasons, cross-carpeting from the political party on which they were elected to another political party. If the political party on which he was elected was popular with the masses, and the masses, the electorate, elected him on the platform of that party, there will be no justification for him to now abandon that party and jump to another, probably because of pastures that he felt could be greener in that other political party. Notwithstanding the fact that I'm a leader in APC, and my political party, APC, is the beneficiary of this development, I think once illegality occurs, once unconstitutionality occurs, we must condemn it. Today, my party may be benefiting from this development. On another occasion, we may be the victim of such illegal acts too. So for us to keep the political scene, the political environment clean of illegalities, of unconstitutionalities, of political brigandage or any form of illicit practice, then it is fundamental, it is mandatory for us to condemn such a thing. I think it would rather be better for the members who have defected to rather go back to their political party so that they can continue occupying their seats. If they have a grudge against the governor and they feel that he has committed any act by which he could be impeached, that is the internal business of the House, although subject to court intervention under the relevant provision of the Constitution. But we have not gotten there. That step is not relevant for now. So as it is, the members of the House who have defected are regarded as having abandoned their seats, and they cannot continue interfering with the functions of the House.
That's right. Let me come to the studio with our guest in the studio, Mr. Oshifowora. We heard what the learned Silk said. But now the 27 lawmakers, or 25 or thereabouts, are now being referred to as G27 or G25, name it. But he's advising them to go back to their first love, which is the PDP. But then the APC had already taken over the affairs of, they've welcomed them to their own camp. They're already even threatening impeachment, to initiate impeachment proceedings on the incumbent governor, Fubara, because of over number of constitutional infringements, according to them. And this G25 also sat, they had a parallel, carrying on with their own legislative business, they also adopted local government autonomy bill, which they didn't adopt when they were PDP members. So how would you how would you assess, all of the activities they've carried on with so far? All right.
First of all, I must commend the industry of the learned senior advocate. Fantastic, brilliant submission, and succinct as it is. Now, but you see, to every law there's an exception, and just like the senior advocate mentioned, that there are positions that the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal have stayed true to, that once you leave your position, in fact, the whole thing starts from Section 68(1)(g) of the 1999 Constitution as amended. It says the court recognized the political party as the one contesting the election. And like the learned senior advocate also pointed to the case of Amechi and Omeya, where the court said that it is the party that is recognized. That's why they could come to that decision. Now, in this case also, you remember we talked about the fact that the speaker has gone to court and there's an interim order recognizing him and asking him to continue. That order has not been vacated. In the face of an order of court, anything you do outside that order is ultra-vires, it's illegal. As popular as the G25 or G27 may think they are, and whatever interest they are protecting, anything they do outside that existing order, the law is the law is clear, and there is no ambiguity here.
I thought they said democracy is a game of numbers. They have the numbers on their own side.
Well, they may think they do, but there's an existing court order. You see, the moment you begin to flout court orders, because at the end of the day, you still go back to this same court.
And there is a sit-in today to argue the main application.
So if you don't follow simple orders like this, you're creating space for anarchy. You're creating space for confusion. At the end of the day, we have seen states in Nigeria where state of emergency was declared. All of them will lose out. So the earlier they come together, and like it was advised earlier, that go back to where you're coming from. It's still fresh. You can still quickly amend. Like they say on the street, that once breeze comes in, it becomes solid. It's solidified, and then it will be hard to, at this stage, they can retrace their steps, say, okay, this was internal affairs, then they come back and put everything together. If it goes beyond this and further steps are taken, the state, that's why I said there's a legal angle, there's a moral angle, there's a social angle. Because the state and the citizens in the states will be the ones to suffer the state. They say where two elephants fight, it's the grass that will suffer. The people are the grass. So the earlier they put it together, and I see a lot of, if they don't resolve this amicably, or they don't find a common ground, I see a lot of litigation coming out of this. And the court will have enough to do in this regard. So, but as it stands, your question is, whatever the 25 are doing outside that court order is wrong.
All right. Leonard Silk, Mr. Adegoke, let's also get your take on, some other controversial happenings recorded in Rivers during the course of the week. And so far, we've had a 2-day demolition exercise of what people have called a crime scene, which is pending police investigation. And this exercise was carried out by the governor, who himself has also been indicted, so to speak. This 25 or 27 members are accusing the government of, possibly having a hand in the arson that took place at the State House of Assembly. But the governor has defended his actions for carrying out the demolition. But what do you really think about the legality or otherwise of the exercise?
Well, the step taken by the governor in terms of a demolition of the House of Assembly, I believe it is too far. The House of Assembly is a property of the state. It was constructed by monies belonging to the taxpayers. This money was voted for the purpose of constructing the House of Assembly, assuming there will be renovation, assuming there is going to be a rebuilding. It is supposed to pass through a process. The public would have been aware, the House itself would have been aware, and there would have been alternative provision for where the businesses of the House would be conducted. The governor at this stage demolishing the House of Assembly actually is a step taken to prevent the members, the other members of the House from being able to conduct any business. And that will equally affect even the members that are loyal to him, the 4 or 5 of them that are loyal to him. To that extent, if the House cannot sit elsewhere except in the House of Assembly, as decided in Inokoju and Adeleke, and I think on this instance, on this issue of demolishing the House of Assembly structure, I don't think the governor is properly advised. If the House cannot sit elsewhere, as held in Inokoju and Adeleke, concerning the Oyo State House of Assembly, when minority members chose to sit in D. Rovan's Hotel to impeach the governor. And I think that was the first instance when such a thing occurred. And the Supreme Court rejected the idea of the House sitting elsewhere. But now that the House of Assembly has been demolished, assuming the members who are not loyal to the governor, assuming they want to carry out an impeachment process, assuming they were still validly occupying their seats, then there is nothing preventing them from sitting elsewhere, because the House of Assembly, where they used to sit, has been demolished. And in such a situation, the court cannot say they should sit in the rubble of the House. The court cannot say they should sit in a place that is no longer in existence. So I believe that the governor could have done better rather than demolishing the House. Demolishing the House structure is a huge waste of taxpayers' money. And at the end of the day, the House will have to be rebuilt. At whose expense? Is it going to be at the expense of the governor? If the governor tries to justify it by saying that, yes, they had already contemplated the need to rebuild or to renovate or something before, the idea of demolition at this particular moment is quite suspicious. And at the end of the day, it is the masses that will suffer. It is neither of the two gladiators, the former governor and the current governor. So I believe that as it is now, the two of them should rather realize that the fight they are conducting in the interest of personal aggrandizement should be allowed to give way to public interest. The idea of demolishing the House, for whatever reason at this particular moment, is inauspicious, and it cannot augur well for the mass of the people who at the end of the day will bear the economic brunt of the losses being recorded in this scenario.
Right, thank you, Mr. Adegoke. Let me also bring you back to the studio, Mr. Oshifowora. It's quite interesting that gale of resignations have actually hit the government of Fubara, Simlai Fubara. We've had about 6 or thereabout 6, Attorney General, Finance, Work, Social, etc. They've actually resigned. And someone was asking me this morning, is that to say that the business of governance in River State is now coming to a halt? Or what happens? Is it because you also refer to the moral aspect, you refer to the constitutional angle to it. Looking morally or looking socially, do you feel that it might affect the running of governance in River State? or is it a way for him to bring in his own structure, so to speak?
It's not as easy as it looks. Now, what the average person will say is that when they resign, fill in the space and put in new people. But you see, I think, in as much as you may not like Wike's style of governance, the man is on top of his game. And I hope the governor too is on top of his game. Because when you have the 25 pullout of the assembly, and then you have this massive resignation, it's a way of grinding the state to a halt. That if almost half of the executive is out, the majority of the legislators are out, you're left in limbo. Now, that's basically what they are playing. Before he will, and then, you know, there's a process to appointing commissioners. You can't just fill in the gap today. Now, you have passed the bill, appropriation bill. Work is supposed to start. You don't have finance. You don't have AG. You don't have, the key components are out. Now, so he's working on the limb. And by the time he gets in new people, even if he has his own loyalists that he needs to fill in the gap, now, how do you now, you bring them before the assembly of 4, and then they approve of, you know, their works, then they now go and start. For me, what is advisable here is for, whilst they're still grandstanding, some intervention needs to come in. Rivers is a sensitive state. The people fighting, they are powerful. Now, you may think Fubara is quiet and easygoing. One of the things you've seen here is that he is not dumb. And he has his own advisors. And so far, he seems to have the better side of the stick in this, as these things are played out. The law still favors him to a large extent. What he's doing is not illegal. In fact, if he takes a more definite step, they can throw out the other party. But how he will now run on one limb is another side of the argument. Because sincerely speaking, let's leave law and let's go to governance. You can't run, it's like even in normal football that we watch, the absence of one player can actually mess up, you know, your team formation. Now you have key components of your party, and then the process of bringing them in is not automatic. So you have to get in, even if you have the best hands to fill in this gap, you have to even go through a certain process, which means that your governance will slow down. And then, you know, governance is based on projections. Whatever projection he's got for this December has been halted by all these happenings. Now, so I think both parties need to come together. At the end of the day, every war still comes to be settled at a round table. So both parties, in the interest of the state and in the interest of continuity, because these things will always happen. You will have issues. As long as, like we said at the beginning, once somebody brings you in, he has a reason for bringing you in. And he will do everything to, that's what's playing out here.
Okay. All right, Mr. Adegoke, SAN, let's have your final take on this matter now, because politics is a game of numbers after all, and then there's the issue of believability or credibility, so to speak, for the Fubara administration, with the commissioners leaving him, key commissioners leaving him. Of course, he has a right to fill up those positions, but in the long run, what are your thoughts on governance, what governance will be like under things, you know, presently constituted, under the way things stand now in Rivers?
Well, the situation in Rivers State right now is questioning the legitimacy of governance as it is. It's very unfortunate that the people of Rivers have to be subjected to this unfortunate scenario. And when you look at it, the members of the executive, the commissioners who have just resigned, definitely have shown that their loyalty is not with the governor. The same will go for as many of them as may choose to resign. Yes, the governor may choose to appoint some other persons. Yes, people are not few. People are not too few for taking up such responsibilities. People, I believe in Rivers State, they have so many people who will be eager to join the executive. But the point is, when a crisis of this nature engulfs a state, It is not, just as I've said before, it is not the gladiators that are actually losing. It is the masses, the people, the electorate, the children that are supposed to benefit educationally from acts of governance, the market women that are supposed to be able to carry out their legitimate businesses funded through availability of state resources. It is the mass of the people that are actually suffering. It is not the two gladiators. And that is why the essence of coming out to govern should not be to protect personal interests. The two gladiators must call themselves to order. I think no matter what, the president is the president of the whole nation. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would do well to assist the people of Rivers State at this particular stage to still call these two gladiators together. The president had taken that step initially when this crisis started unfolding. But as things are now, he cannot afford to leave them to their fate. He should please, as the father of the nation, should please step in so that these two, if personal ego will not allow the two of them to reason and see why they must abandon this personal vendetta, it is fundamental for the president to step in and try to bring them to order.
All right.
The situation is not telling a good story at all about our style of governance in Nigeria.
Leonard Silk, we've come to the end of this segment, and that's how much we can accommodate on this very interesting and concerning topic. Still talking about the rivers crisis. Kunle Adegoke, SAN, and Olutubosun Oshifowora joining us here in the studios. We thank you both, gentlemen, for your legal insights and your contributions on the program today.
Always a pleasure.